When we talk about legacy, it's often talked about but rarely defined. So, ladies first. So, when you think of legacy in your business and family, what does that personally mean to you?
So, hey guys, I'm Layla with the Toy Sweet Treats. Thank you for having me, Urban League and the beautiful panel. Thanks. What legacy means is right there. So today, I'm a wife and I'm a mother first. This is my first baby. She's with me. And I think when you think about legacy, my entire brand was built off of legacy. But Toys is my maiden name, and I'm standing on the outfit of my father. When you release little girls into the world, they shed the heritage of their paternal lineage. But I wanted to stand on business and continue to pay homage to the person, the man that instilled the discipline, the ethic, the grit, the hustle into what and who I am today. And so I built my brand to build legacy and
An online estate planning platform. We empower individuals, families, and communities to secure their legacies through proper estate planning by getting everything organized, as well as giving you the access to prepare legal documents and making it more accessible and more affordable. Because unfortunately, that just doesn't happen often enough in our community. We lose businesses, we lose homes, we lose assets, so that next generation, unfortunately, we find ourselves passing the wealth up instead of down the way it's supposed to go. And while we will all do what we need to take care of parents and grandparents, hopefully with coming generations, we're more focused on passing wealth down. What does legacy mean to me? I'm the oldest of three, born and raised on the west side of Chicago. Lost my mom and dad at this point, but I still have Granny, who's 85 years old, my mom's mom. Just celebrated her birthday on April 24th, and we took her to Vegas for the first time. So after this, I'll be happy to show y'all some video. And it was a surprise, by the way, all the way until lots of surprise. She didn't know we were going to Vegas until she got to the airport. She didn't know we were going until we popped up at the gate. And then at our hotel, her older and younger sisters drove from Georgia and met us in Vegas, and she was super shocked by that. So we had an amazing time in Vegas. I did a TEDx called Sharecropper to Shareholder back in 2018. Please check it out. It's on YouTube. And if you know both of those terms, it meant a lot to me and my family from a legacy perspective. My niece, Louie, was born in 2008, 2 years and 2 days to the day that our mom passed. She turned 8 years old in 2016. I decided to buy her shares of stock in Nike, Apple, and Disney. And then I asked her, I said, Cadence, do you understand what it means to own stock after I took her to each of the stores? She said, do I get free stuff now? I said, no, it doesn't quite work that way. You are an owner, but you don't get free stuff. But then she asked, do I make money when people buy stuff? I said, that's exactly what it means to be a shareholder. And so I'm sitting around one day with Granny to my left and Cadence, my niece, to my right. And I was like, when this woman was 10 years old, she was picking cotton in the field in Mississippi. When my niece at 10 years old, she's picking a stock portfolio that at that time had Nike, Apple, Disney, Walmart, Microsoft, Starbucks, and all these other companies. And so I turned that into a conversation about legacy, building wealth, and generational advancement. So that's what legacy means to me.
That's awesome.
And I'm a father as well. I was not smart enough to bring my baby. And that's so dope. Like, it's awesome, Layla. My daughter Savannah's 3.5 years old, and so I'm creating new legacy right now.
But to that point, and I'm glad. First of all, I'm glad you brought your daughter, but and I'm glad you mentioned your children. One of the things that I think is remiss from a lot of these things is that we don't have our children there. In other communities, the young folks are watching the elders, and whether or not you're talking to them directly, they see what's happening and they're beginning to understand things through osmosis. So it's just fitting. I don't know if this was already grand that you were bringing your daughter, but it's just fitting that you have the next generation. And even though she's eating that car right now, I know she's paying attention to what we taught her about.
not a bad bet.
So if I could I want to go back to pick up on a thread that I think both of you said, and I want to see if I could have you expound on it a little bit. So, and this is before we get into any business strategies, which I'm sure everybody's dying to talk about, but I want to talk a little bit more about the root of your entrepreneurial journey. Was it purpose? Was it necessity? Did you see an opportunity? Or was it something that was passed down? What is it that made each one of you want to be what you be?
I would say mine was all of the above. So again, I grew up in liquor stores and nightclubs, and my father was a serial entrepreneur. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. I'm going to school. I went to Clark Atlanta University. Then all the pencils in the building, right? And so from there, I went into something that we don't really talk about in our community, which I was a management consulting with Accenture, which is one of the top global consulting firms. So I have lived and worked all over the world, expated. And I made what would be considered to most people really good money. And then you got all the Marriott. I'm like, I'm still to this day like a Marriott president from all the travel. But when you live in that lifestyle, you gone wheels up to wheels down, Monday through Friday. You always gone. You're on the road, and that's fine when you're in your 20s, and you. But in that same vein, I was always a top performer, but I was never given the same respect and pay as other people that were on my project. And in most cases, I was the only African American woman on a project where I'm bringing in, I'm running like 10,000 people, complex program delivery. But then when it's time to meet with the client, I'm in the background. But it's okay for me to be on the foreground when it's time to get the wheels to the metal. So, I got to a place, a space where first you putting in that time, then you build up your value, you build up your equity, you understand what your worth is. So I was in a place and space in my career. I had a husband, I had money in the bank, I had a 401k where I could say, you know what, I got choices. I have options. I was living in Atlanta at that time. So my father and I had started to do some real estate. We bought a lot of land. We were doing some different things. So I said, you know what, my dad's getting old. I'm going to come home. And then when we started looking at the recidivism and the violence and all the things that were going on the West Side, I said, you know what? It just came to me one day. We were looking around, we were riding around. I said, you know what, we're going to, and you can Google this under Rob Emanuel. When you look at Invest Southwest, my business is pioneered what is called the Soul City Corridor. I was the first to stand up high-profile businesses on Chicago Avenue in Austin. I'm one of the first women that owns her business, my buildings, and my brand. Yes. And I did that by pumping the dirt off the West Side. Some of y'all may outdate yourselves, but I go off the Master P model. So I stay right. I about bumping out the trunk, right? But when I first built that, I never thought that my businesses would be where they are. Not because I didn't believe in it, but my purpose at that time was to bring jobs, provide, a whole bunch of good stuff on the West Side, right? Economic development and workforce and blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff. And then what they don't tell you is you spend all this money, you put your stuff on the West Side, you ain't even been there long enough for they to tow your windows out. Yep. And they done busted your stuff in. We had the armed robbery and the insurances. You saying, you know what, this West Side revitalization thing is not really working out for me the way that I thought it would. You know what I mean? But the purpose, the seed, and then having the option was there for me. When we get later, I'll talk to you about how I pivoted and was still able to meet some of the needs around my purpose. But it wasn't like I just woke up with this dream. I was at a place in corporate America. I wanted to do a pivot. I had the funds and the means. And my father was always there in my ear around what you should be doing, standing up in your community, and how you should be standing on business.
All right, Nana. All right.
Awesome. I went to school at Tulane, so I am quite familiar. I came out in the 99s and the 2000s.
No, I was in the ATA. Yeah.
That's all right. That's all right. Same difference, just about.
Oh, don't Google none of them videos and that.
I saw a documentary already. We gonna make sure Charm don't see that. So my journey's been interesting. I just mentioned studying engineering at Tulane. Went to work at P&G as an engineer in Cincinnati, and then Columbia for my MBA. And then spent a couple years in the music business as an entrepreneur. So that was one of my earliest forays in entrepreneurship. Didn't work out at all. It was fun. We did shows, did some travel, but unless your artist is a superstar breakout like Bruno Mars, ain't no money in managing music artists. And so I came back to Chicago to start working with a mentor who ran a private equity firm. Now, I wouldn't really, even though I had my MBA, I wasn't into finance like that. But I needed a place to rest my head and refigure out what I was going to do with the rest of my life. This is age 28. It was almost 20 years ago now. and learn more about private equity. For those who don't know, private equity is essentially the business of investing in other businesses. And so if you watch Shark Tank, that was essentially my day job, except we weren't investing in other businesses. We were investing in other funds that would then go out and buy businesses. And so we'll come back to that in a second. So that was gave me a much deeper understanding of how capital flows, as well as the challenges for Black people and women to raise capital for their business. There's about $80 trillion of the T of capital being managed around the country, and less than 2% of that is managed by women and people of color. That's combined. That includes Caucasian women and every color you can think of. What that essentially says is 98.6% of every single dollar where there's a decision being made about what to do with it is being done by a white man or at a white male-led organization. So that just gives you some of the macro challenges of trying to start businesses, grow businesses, and build businesses. So I did that for like 12, 13 years. And essentially got to a point where I was kind of fed up being quote unquote inside. They tell you to try to change systems from the inside. I have my own view about it. I actually don't think it's really possible. I don't think it's possible to change these systems I'm not saying leave the firm. I'm not saying don't push to get another employee there. I'm not saying don't try to push to get yet another couple of dollars shifted in the direction, but to change the system, when you're inside of it, you then become an outcast because you're trying to change the structure of the place where you are. So your survival mechanism kicks in and you start saying, well, I'm not about putting my job at risk because I want to help all Black people. I did do that. And so I left that job. And my fault, I had decent money, but I hadn't saved up enough to retire fully. But I needed to get away for the mental capacity, to save some of my mental capacity to go out and do more purposeful work that I wanted to do. I didn't know exactly what that would be, but over the past 5 years, it led me to a couple of friends who had started InHeirit, Aston Hayes and Amanda Mutraj, and I joined them as a third co-founder to help raise capital for this platform. We raised $100,000 from in a friends and family round so far. We won the Southside Pitch Competition in 2024, and we've launched our MVP. For those in the tech world, that's your minimum viable product. It's the first one that you can put out that people can actually use. So after today, you'll see these floating around, these flyers. You can scan the QR code, visit the site. We need everybody in here to sign up. It is a paid subscription platform, but you can sign up for free now to get your power of attorney for help done if you don't have that done yet, as well as you'll start getting your assets organized. Everybody wants to jump straight to doing a trust, and a will is important. Don't get me wrong, those documents are critical. But if you don't even know the assets that you have, those documents are irrelevant. So first and foremost, just organize what it is you have and think about some of the basic information that you need to have saved somewhere. God forbid something happens to you sooner than you would like, and a friend or family member has to manage those affairs. So that was my journey. I just wanted to get engaged because this is a topic that I thought was very relevant. I lost my mom in 2006 and I had to go through this. And so I don't think anybody should have to go through not only dealing with the loss, the grief of the loss of the loved one, but the grief of then losing the home, of losing the business, of losing the assets, of losing the 401k, of losing the life insurance because it wasn't documented properly.
That's excellent. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit. So of the 3.6 million Black businesses that exist in Rendel, I'm not going to ask you to quote the statistics.
So Robert, do not start asking me statistics questions, man. I'm not, y'all can chat GPT statistics. We're here for personal connections.
But having said that, of the 3.6 million Black businesses roughly that exist, 96% of them are solopreneurs. How many solopreneurs do we have in the house tonight? See if that tracks. It's dark, but that looks like that still tracks about right. And what that means is that, a solopreneur is a one-person business. So, and so the name of this panel is Roots, Hustle, and Heirs. And if you're a solopreneur, I know you hustling. I mean, that's the nature of the beast. So I'm going to ask the panel, what systems or structure did you put in place that helped turn your hustle into a sustainable company?
I'm happy to jump in. Yeah. Hey, Charm. Can we give it up for Kelly Evans, y'all, with Chicago Urban League? No. Putting the program together, babysitting, auntie, definition of auntie. You said dancer? Who said dancer?
Who said that?
That's funny. So the question is around what did we put in place to address the legacy and multiple people being a solopreneur. So first and foremost, we are 3 co-founders. So by definition, we've already built in a structure to where we're not a solo business. So there's information and knowledge that rests with each of us. And there's still systems in place that we need to manage to still deal with if one co-founder decides to leave, if something happens to a co-founder. So whether you're a solopreneur or whether you have a partner or two, one of the main things you need to have in place is some kind of succession plan. You have to write down something about what happens if you get hit by a lottery ticket and you decide, you know what, I don't really need this business anymore. I just want $200 million. Hey, Robert, I'm out, bro. You can have it. It's all yours now. And while I might just want to say that, but if I were to disappear with that $200 million and Robert and I own the business together, he's now stuck. He's got investors potentially. He's got customers that are going to start asking questions, assuming I played some critical role in the business. And so those things need to be documented. What happens with the business and the operations and the finances if one of the partners leaves? And whether they leave on purpose or not, if they're gone, what happens with the business? So that's the first thing I'd say do. And secondly, somewhat to answer the question, I think considering how your business scales and becomes more than the one person show, you want to think about how do you move your business beyond just you from an operations perspective. So if all of the knowledge of the business rests in your head and you're the brain and it relies on just you, then it's going to struggle again if you do something else, or God forbid the good Lord calls you home sooner than you expect. You want that business to continue because you have imparted the knowledge, the wisdoms, and the systems and the structures, made your customers aware that, hey, this business is good, even if I'm not here, because this person who I have been training for X number of years, whether it's a daughter, Charm, or whether it's another person in the business, is prepared to take it over.
I think for me, you got to start with the end in mind. And even though, you might start out as the solopreneur, and I get it, I've been there. You don't have the money right away to be like, I'm going to have an assistant and a this and a director of operations. And that's just not happening right out the gate, right? For us, because I have a tech and consulting background, even though we're a luxury food manufacturer, my entire system is built into Microsoft 365. So how we run production cycles, how I communicate with the team. The bakers in my crew right now are on Microsoft Teams. I could pull up a report right now and figure out how many cookies fell off the line that didn't pass QA. For me, because I had that cadence of sprint cycle management, tech, that's how I think. Now, let me tell you why that is advantageous for you. Even when if you decide you want to start getting into investors or be bankable, they still want to know how your operation is running, how these things work, right? So it's still as good as you are going through things. Even if you're not a master consultant or a mastermind, it's good for you to at least start writing these things down. These things can eventually turn into standard operating procedures for your business or your brand. The other thing you got to think about is just ask yourself, how important is your time? So if you want to be making 1,000 brownies a day, there you go. Have at it. Enjoy yourself. You know what I mean? And that might be a limitation of how far your business can scale because you're only one person and you can only make this. What I will also tell you is that when you are trying to scale and you don't have processes and you're like, those people work for me, they just can't get it together. What if you were the problem? What if you all over the place? What if you have no consistency and no structure? Maybe you're the problem, Jack. Yeah. Now, once you get yourself together and get some standardization on how you train, recruit, performance manage, then you can say, these people are just crazy. But until you do that and do some self-reflection, you cannot expect the person to come in and be the janitor, the mailman, the front desk lady, bake cookie. That's what you do. This is your business. I'm not doing that for $16.50 an hour. Jack, they ain't acting.
Man, let me tell y'all something. Next time somebody say something negative about the West Side, I'm going to slap them in the face. Because this sister here is bad.
I mean, and understand, so when I first was hiring people, we had this, you got to be a luxury so-and-so with 3 years of experience in baking and blah, blah, blah. You had to come from the Le Cordon Bleu. I got the people from Le Cordon Bleu, they couldn't even measure sugar. I'm like, what do you mean is it packed or not packed? It's 3 cups. This is 3 cups right there, measured to that line. That I don't know how to, you know what I mean? So what I'm saying is a lot of times you putting too much over into it. Sometimes you could just get a good person and train them up. So if you are clear around your work streams, so my business is set up around work streams. We do decentralization. I don't have a manager. Oh my God, there's no manager. Oh my God. I ain't paying nobody $80,000 to stand around and tell me, sweep this, clean. I could do that from the camera.
Exactly.
But what if you had instead of a manager, what if you had 4 or 5 people that you could pay $30 an hour? So real life hitters that's showing up, because Starbucks ain't paying you $25, $30. The people in my business make $25, $30 an hour, unless you a packer. So it ain't too many places you could go and make that kind of money, and there's no stress. So I don't come down there and say, do this, do that. Your peer comes over you. When the cookies gonna be out? Man, I got you holding me up.
Right.
So that work stream management allows to take pressure off me as a leader. You don't have them cultural cliques, because now everybody's accountable to each other as a team, and there's enough money in that pot instead of paying one pot shot at the top. So when I come in, my team telling me what to do. I'm like, I'm here to remove roadblocks and do strategy. Does anyone need help? And then we have stand-ups. That came from my consulting world. It ain't all day. It's 15 minutes. I don't want to hear hey, it's 15. I got 15 minutes. That's all we got. If it can't be solved in 15 minutes, then I'm paying somebody too much. It's just that simple. So you articulate to me in 15-minute intervals. I don't want to start off a whole thing with, what a day, two, not. Stop. So take some time and think about where you really want your business to go. And if you are thinking about accelerating, and especially if you think about being like, I'm going to be in the stores and this, you cannot be caught out here flat foot. You're going to have processes, because this stuff is going to be coming at you so fast. How do you get business in the door? How do you quickly look at your costs? We were on, last year we did a big thing. I was one of the only African-American women on Home Shopping Network. And I'm on that doing thing with my hands. I got the cookies and the da-da-da. And you like, you on the Home Shopping Network. We did 2 shows. And I said, run me the numbers on that. We will no longer be on the Home Shopping Network. This looking good, sounds good. Glad we was on here and I did the thing. I'm afraid I had the nail thing going. That's over with. But if you don't have processes set up where you understand your food costs, before you turn the door, you need to know how much does it cost to be up in here. If you don't know that, then everything sounds good. One of my girlfriends just said, well, she got this big opportunity. I said, well, how you going to do it? Well, technically it's a loss by unit, but it'll be better if when I scale it. A loss, a negative cent is a negative penny. No matter how far you scale it, it's negative. But they got you thinking, well, if I throw 3 million, it's 3 million negative. Yeah. But if you don't know your numbers, you don't have processes, and you don't know where you're going, your business will be gone, and you've been and took a loan or doing something and thinking, well, I'm going to take a loan to do this. But what if you just sold 50 CDs for $5 and you made $250 and all this other stuff you did? Negative. So you got to know your numbers and get control and get some good people around, and stop thinking the good person is the fancy person from Le Cordon Bleu. And I'm not saying this to be offensive to anybody. I got some people that's missing some teeth. Them is good people. No, that's... Stop judging.
OTD. I got some people that miss teeth.
I'm in the food industry. I'm not, y'all stuff might be more fancy. Stop judging people. These are good people who would do anything for me. These women going through the fire with me. And I'm rocking they rolling.
I love it. I love it. Let's give it up. The other thing that I would add, just to amplify, I think what's already been said, particularly about the computerization, my advice to solopreneurs: your first employee should be AI. there's a tremendous amount of things that you can do, even as a solopreneur, by leveraging technology to begin to put some of those processes in place. So don't think just because you are a one-person show that all is lost, but begin to standardize those processes using a ton of AI tools. I'm sure the folks here at the Urban League can help you figure out which ones those are that are applicable to your business. But AI now is, I think, a great advantage for small businesses, particularly African American business, of which, as I said, 96% are solopreneurs. So leverage that tool to get you going, get that inertia, and then it can help you figure out what your next employee should be. So I want to switch gears again and go to building on what I just said. In addition to us being heavily solopreneur dominated as a people, many Black entrepreneurs are first generation business owners and have to build while learning. So we kind of touched on what were some of the most important lessons or mistakes you had to navigate. So I'll switch it over to you, Rendel, and ask you that question. And if you had anything, Layla, that you want to add, we'll come back.
We're still early in our journey of entrepreneurship, so the mistakes and lessons are happening every single day, real time. Might have to call about this as soon as we get out of here. We've done a couple of accelerators recently, and I hear other entrepreneurial stories in the tech space. It's going to be different than building a retail business, of course, right? The capital is needed up front, and the need to scale, but one of our lessons that we're learning real time is around, you have an idea to go out and build something because you like it for whatever reason. That does not mean everybody else will buy it. And so as an entrepreneur, and I'm just saying for us as well, because we have a platform that's up and it is a subscription service and we know people need it. There's no question. Nobody in here is going to say doing estate planning is a bad business. We all know they need it. But to be a revenue generating business, the question then becomes, are people prepared to pay for it? And so I think that's one of the lessons that we're still working through right now is should we have done more market research, more testing, and built an MVP with less features to confirm that this is something people would buy. Now, the good news for us is there are other platforms operating in this death care, legacy care, end of life space, and they're raising capital and they're getting customers. So if you see others doing it, that does give you some data that there's a need there, but we want to make sure maybe we could have done a little bit more within our community just to make sure that platform was going to be something that people would be willing to pay for, to better understand our pricing metrics and what services are actually needed. Because we can have an idea of what's there, but until your customers tell you what they need, you don't know nothing about your business.
And I'll just pick up on that. What he's talking about is persona management and knowing who your customers are. And for me, when I told you I was a luxury treat manufacturer, West Side. Luxury, West Side. I'm already in the wrong place at the wrong time. Yeah, I'm already trying.
They go together. I think they go together.
But if I would have stayed continuing to try to push this product, you got to understand where you are. Like, they can't afford a $25 bag of popcorn. I can get a whole Popeye's chicken shebang, to take home. So don't always just fold, because you might just be putting the wrong product in front of the wrong customer. So, and I didn't go into, where we are, but when I was doing it, or people come in, oh, the price too high, do it taste like Gary's, all these things. Then I'm like, I was assuming I'm right here by Oak Park. I'm right on that. But you're not thinking, they scared to cross over Austin. So I'm dealing with all of these things. So I said, okay, my product doesn't use stabilizers. It's fresh natural ingredients. Here's the price point. Where would these people be? They're at the airport. The water, $10? They're at the stadiums. You're going out for a good time. So I'm like, okay, now where do these people congregate? How do I get access to them? So start asking yourself, first of all, what is the product that I have? And if it goes to persona Jimmy, where does Jimmy hang out? Where do you find Jimmy? Well, how much would Jimmy be willing to pay? So once I switched that thinking and start understanding who my targeted audience was and where they were, it helped me get laser focused. So when people come in and say, oh, that's much, not for you. It's not for you.
And that's okay.
That's okay.
Perfectly
You
okay.
flaming hot. No, it's not. need them, but it's not okay. Right. But this product right here is not for you. And that doesn't mean I need to change my price, my product, or anything, because I'm still standing on what I am. And today I made history. Today I just came from the dock. I'm the only African American woman with her own stands in O'Hare and Midway airports. And I just came from busting down a pallet with baby girl. And if I would have gave up from what the West Side, well, it's too expensive, I think it's too this, it's too bougie, the packaging is too this. Well, guess what? Somebody pays for that. And somebody in corporate America pays us a lot of money to make these cute little boxes because they care about bones. They care about there's somebody who cares about these little details. You just have to find who they are and what they're willing to pay for. The other thing I would just say is keep your finances in order. There's a lot of things that you out here, you like, okay, before you even turn the key, they didn't tell you this, but you already in a silent relationship with Uncle Sam. Mm-hmm. So already take off, I made $1, you already down to 70 cents. Because Uncle Sam is coming to get Futa, UIE, EIE, ABC, is a whole lot of stuff going on here that you not hip to. And when you out here selling stuff and you don't know that, and then you look up in the Illinois Department of Revenue is like, you ain't found out no ST1. You like, ST1, what is that? Be informed, because this stuff, it starts ticking as soon as you start those sales. I'm going to also talk to you about creative financing. Now, a lot of banks don't like me to say this. I'm not bankable. And the reason why I'm not bankable is because I have a cash flow problem. In my business, the airport don't pay me first. I got to be able to front loads for 90, 60, 120 days. So I got a lot of product and a lot of accounts receivable that's just sitting over here stacking up. So the bank will come to me and say, even though you got money coming in, you ain't that sexy because you got a cash flow problem, right? But what they don't tell you is that there's something called invoice factor. People don't even know what that is. They like, what? That's the people I can go to right now. Like, look, airport ramping up. I need $400,000. And if you get a purchase order from Walmart, Whole Foods, the airport, and you take it over here to this guy right here, let's work. I'll buy that invoice for him.
Layla explained that is a little more expensive capital.
It is an expensive capital, but in my business, I tell you, I deal with luxury. I roll that in the price. Right. And then you come back and renegotiate. So on average, most people might be paying 9, 10%, but 9, 10% is 14% on a loan. That's right. Or a credit line right now. Yeah. So I went back and said, I'm running this much through, I want 5%. And this how much I'm gonna be running through with y'all. Now I'm in this airport, boom, 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 let's work. So I use invoice factor. The other thing, starting off small, when y'all using Square and Shopify, when you get enough little sales to that, you'll get one of them emails like, hi, Layla, would you like money? Great. So all I'm saying is, it ain't always that you got to fill out this stuff and go to the bank. Yes, it is a more expensive way to do business, but depending on your product, it may make sense if you can cover those costs or move those into a different way. So get your finance game up and just be on top of it.
100%. All right. So how much are we doing on time? Okay. All right. So I want to move on to another generational question. So both of you are building companies that can outlive you. How are you preparing the next generation to inherit not just the assets, but the mindset?
It's funny you just said the name of the business right there. InHeirit is spelled INHEIRIT, by the way, guys. We're playing on that word, heir. How are we preparing the next generation? I think you started off at the beginning. It's having the conversations in front of the young people in our lives, whether that is our children, our nieces, our nephews, kids that are in college right now, giving opportunities for people to come and learn what it is that you know, but also letting them experience it in real life. I think when they can see and touch it and feel it, that osmosis thing starts to kick in, like you said earlier. So that's one of the most important things that you can do to prepare the next generation for whether or not they're going to stay in that business. There are skills that they're going to pick up that could be used anywhere. What Layla's over here talking about doesn't have to be cookies. Guess what? The drug dealer on the corner doing the same thing. which is what's wild, right? Like they have the skills to do this work legally. And so to the extent that it's not an easy answer, but to the extent that they can be exposed to that early and start to engage in it and see the revenue generating possibilities for themselves, and the hope is over time, along with other systemic and structural changes, that starts to change the trajectory of where the next generation is going to be when there's time for them to run a business.
And you know, similar to him, I mean, I'm putting baby girl in position, but she might not want to do this. And so again, I think her, you know, I could teach her more than any school could ever teach her, because I'm teaching her the streets, I'm teaching her business, and I'm teaching her book smarts all in one. You can't, she gonna be light years ahead of anything you can learn in any textbook. That can't teach you wisdom and what I'm out here, what your mom is out here really doing in real life. So if she decides not to, with your business, start with the end in mind. What is your succession plan? Do I want to make brownies until I'm 100 years old? Right? No, I do not. So I'm positioning my business for 3.0. 3.0 is a few different things. I got some licensing situations coming up. I got some buyout situations coming up. And when you put yourself and build this up, now you sexy. You sexy to investors. You sexy for people might just want to buy my recipes and white label this. Some people might want to buy parts of my business. The platform that I told you that I built, I'm about to start selling it. So there's many things that you could be building, businesses within a business, that after your initial business started, you might not want to do. I mean, running the operation, what I'm doing is real live work. I'm not going to tell you that it's not where I started lifting 50-pound bag. I know I look like a small girl. I'm strong up here. And if somebody called off at one point when I was a solopreneur, I had to lift 50-pound bags of popcorn, seasoning, flour, and sugar, right? Over time, the more people you get, that's still a big operation, and it's a lot of responsibility because you cannot take your hand off of operation, even if you have all the systems and everything in place. So think about who you want to be and where you might want to go. The future for me is not going to be running a long-term operation. So I'm putting things in place now to look at what that future would look like, licensing and other things, and strategic partnerships. And again, I didn't take investments early on, so I got a lot to play with. I'm 100% owner, so now if I want to give up a piece of my business here, a piece over there, I have that to play with because I didn't dilute my business so heavy up front on a trajectory up. So I'm in a sexy space, I'm grounded down, and I'm ready to chat. Might be someone here who wants to chat.
Kind of did that. Let me add one thing. Obviously, that Layla touched on, this idea. She brought up with the end in mind, right? In the investing world, that's an exit plan. It's an exit plan, and we often vilify, particularly Black entrepreneurs, about thinking about an exit as if they're only thinking about quote unquote getting the bag, right? That means they don't have the passion. No, you have the passion is there, but you also, at some point, you can't run it forever by definition. So whether you exit on purpose, or whether you exit because the Lord decides to take you, that something's going to happen with that business. And whether it's passed down to a child who may or may not want it, and whether it's passed to a founder alongside you or someone else at the bit, or someone comes along and buys it, there's going to be an exit. So to the extent that you can control and manage that exit, it's going to help you with decisions you're making today. If Layla had a plan to sell her business to Nestle, she should be thinking about where do I need to build my business up to? What kind of businesses is Nestle buying? How do I get my business to that point? And how much revenue do I need to have? How much earnings do I need to have to get to the point where they might be interested in my business? So whatever it is you're running, it's going to take partnerships. It's going to take expansion. It's going to take scale if you want to get there. Now, that's not to say every business doesn't have to go become a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate. That's just not how America works. There's going to continue to be a lot of smaller businesses that serve a critical need, but you can't have it both ways. You can't be like, I'm going to only be on 43rd and King. I want to be $1 billion brand. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. The world's a lot bigger than 43rd and King, where I stay. It's a great place to live and start a business. Bronzeville. Come on now. So next time we need to ride out to the west side together and get some popcorn. All All right, back to you, Robert. My bad.
No, this is a perfect segue because I just realized that I was remiss. I didn't do a commercial for my business.
Exactly. I was going to ask you to do that.
Like, let me get my little piece in. So at the Solomon Group, that's what.
No relation.
Right, exactly, no relation. But I'm trying to get this brother over here. But we raise capital for Black entrepreneurs, help them grow and scale their businesses, help them franchise, grow through M&A or strategic partnerships. In particular, scaling a lot of businesses that want to do business in Africa and African businesses that want to do business here in the United States. So this concept of growing a business, scaling a business is something near and dear to my heart because it's something that we do every day. And one of the things that I want to share with this group, a term which you may or may not be been familiar with, because I think it plays into this conversation that we're having now about generational legacy. And it's this concept called the silver tsunami. Does anyone know what this have heard of that term, the silver tsunami? So the silver tsunami refers to the fact that right now there's probably, depending on the estimate, anywhere between 90 to $100 trillion worth of wealth that's about to be transferred because older white gentlemen, primarily gentlemen, are retiring and their kids don't want the business. And so that business has to go somewhere because, as Rendel said, the only way that you can extract value from a business is through an exit or selling it. So for, again, all of these solopreneurs, one way to grow and scale your business is through M&A or buying an existing business. So when you think about how you grow your business, there's a variety of options. You know, obviously just growing it through organically, franchising, looking to acquire a business or strategic partner share. So both of them have talked about examples of that. So as you talked a little bit probably more in terms of like, what is your exit strategy or what end in mind or different avenues are you thinking about at this stage?
A few. So first of all, I want to stop because it just not connected with me. We taught that breed line. You are my succession plan.
$1 billion brand, babe.
You're a river. So it ain't even just connected to right now. See what I'm saying? I'm all over the place. So a big part of my succession plan is, again, I don't plan on running my operation. And I did have a good opportunity to have a chat with you about where I was in my business and what I wanted succession planning to look like. And one of the good things about having strategic partnerships with other people in your place and space is that this brother gave me an idea that I didn't even think about, which was, you know, sometimes because these other businesses are dying out, you can position yourself to grab one of those businesses that is already on autopilot and fast forward. So I have some licensing things underway, but another part of my succession planning was that was on me, that I was supposed to get back to. You've not been grinding it. So, right, I will be connecting back with you to finalize my succession plan as we had discussed.
All right, I like that.
How it work in play.
Couple different exit paths, I think, for a company like InHeirit. As I mentioned before, there's a lot of activity, both fundraising, investment, and business in the death care, end of life care. So if you think about just all the categories related to end of life, right? Elder care, funerals, insurance, wealth management, wealth advisory, like all these areas are touch on our financial lives, as well as addressing some of our needs as we age. And so InHeirit fits right in there. It's a legal tech platform. Some might call it fintech, but it's more of a legal tech platform. I'll give you one example. I'll throw it out there, right? Think about what InHeirit has built. You guys know InHeirit? What do they own? What have they bought in the past like 5-10 years? Bingo. So now you got your accounting, you got tax planning. Didn't they buy Credit Karma? About Credit Karma. Now you got credit. You see a pattern here? You got a big company strategically buying up all these different businesses that are addressing various parts of your financial life, of which estate planning is the last one, pun intended, but boom. So if that's one option, right? We could build up the business enough that a company like Intuit might want to have InHeirit now be part of their. So now when you go to intuit.com, you decide if you're going to buy TurboTax from them. You decide if you're going to buy QuickBooks, or you might purchase InHeirit if they keep the brand. Another option might be an insurance company. Could be a Northwestern Mutual. It could be an Allstate. So an insurance company, it's in the business of selling you insurance for whatever, but let's put life in there because that's the one we're focused on, could decide that the estate planning part of what we do might be an attractive benefit for their customers, might make their customers want to go to their platform, perhaps more so than another one. So whether it's a financial institution that might want to come along and buy you if it grows enough, whether it is a business that's perhaps similar to yours in a different lane that might want to come, or you might become that acquirer. Let's not just say that your exit is always you sell your business. Maybe part of it is you build up yours to be the conglomerate, right? And then again, you still have to deal with the same succession issues later on, but you're not sort of letting the business go. You're growing it to a scale that it's even greater, and then you'll be the silver tsunami. I don't know. We are the Jerry Curl tsunami. I don't know. I don't know what we call ours. Soul glow tsunami.
All right. I'm going to ask one last question, and I don't know how we're doing on time. If we have time to take questions for the audience. Okay. All right. But okay. So last question to the panel: if you could speak to your younger entrepreneurial self, what is one decision you would have made earlier?
Get started.
Man, I was just gonna say save up, but yes, to get started, I love that one. But also, save up. Having a little coin in place helped with the early part of that journey. You don't have to go out and ask folks for money. But yeah, you got to get started no matter what. So get started and save up. Not necessarily in that order.
All right. Any questions from? First of all, let's give our panel a huge round of applause. I could not see a thing out there.
Larvetta's gonna handle it.
When in the process of scaling your business, at what point did you know it was time to start hiring the employees?
You repeat that question.
Defer to Layla.
With it.
When in the process of scaling your business, at one point did you know it was time to start hiring the employees?
For me, I budgeted for that. So as part of my plan and telling you who my customers were and what I was trying to do, I knew I couldn't secure an airport deal and not have anything in place. So when I started to get closer to that sales cycle of warming up, of knowing that I was going to close some of those deals, I didn't wait. I budgeted to bring people on board to start getting them trained and ready to go. So for me, it was about planning out my sales cycle.
Yeah, we ain't got no employees, so yeah, I can't afford myself. Look for free labor. Yeah.
Interns.
All right. It's anybody else?
Any other questions? That's the only question we have.
On what? Going twice.